Greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep and put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. Ooh, they're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Welcome back to the Steadfast and Loyal podcast, and I am joined with Tony Ortiz, and Tony is the founder of the Current Revolt. It's an incredible paper here in the state of Texas. Love them or hate them, there's no politics as usual with Current Revolt. From investigative journalism to opinion pieces and satire, Current Revolt covers the topics that people aren't comfortable discussing aloud. It's impossible to deny the influence that Current Revolt has had on the Texas political landscape and Texas voters. Tony, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
here
for having
on the
me
podcast.
Appreciate
now, you're not a native Texan. You're from Chicago. I mean, what's your sentiments when you see what is happening going on in Chicago today?
Man, so I was there this weekend for a wedding, and it's just horrible. It's gone downhill from when I grew up, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a good gauge for where Texas may end up if we don't get our stuff in order.
It's a sad thing because, you think about California was a red state. I mean, Nevada was a red state except for Las Vegas, Clark County, maybe Reno. You look at what happened in Colorado, where all of a sudden you get the influx of the Californians, and because of Denver and Boulder and a little bit of Aspen, now Colorado is a blue state. What do you see happening in the trends? Because I do believe Texas is in a state of decline, heading toward a demise.
Absolutely. I mean, they're whittling away at our rights. They're whittling away at our ability to stay a right-wing state, right? A conservative state. And it seems, at least based on my opinion, that the wins that we do get, and they are rare, seem to be ceasefires. We're not actually gaining any ground. We're constantly ceding ground to the left. They're getting their victories. And when we do get a win, it's not always a great one. The biggest win we've gotten recently, and not to minimize it, is the abortion topic there. And that's been a fantastic win. But other than that, we've kind of struggled to get victories under our belt.
But the amazing thing is that here in the state of Texas for, I think, close to 25 years, you've had a Republican in the governor's mansion, Republican control of the state house and the state senate, but we're not advancing. We're not going in the right direction. And why do we have this stalemate? I mean, we have Republicans that are putting Democrats in charge of key committees in the state house here in Texas. Why?
Yeah, there's this desire to want to play ball with the people that won't play ball with us. I mean, you can't reason with people that don't live in reality. The Democrats and the leftists, they believe in a million different genders and chopping off body parts. And somehow, for some reason, our party, or the leaders of our party, still think that we need to give them a seat at the table. These people don't live in reality. And going even further, we keep allowing and giving tax benefits and discounts to companies that are what a lot of people describe as woke, as
a lot of big
company.
tech companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that for more revenue, but we're selling out our country for revenue, for tax revenue. We're selling out our state, and it's going to make life hard for our future residents and future children growing up in the state.
And so when you look at Texas right now, what was the inspiration that hit you to start Current Revolt?
Anger. Yeah, a lot of anger. So Current Revolt started out of the lockdowns from COVID in 2020. I was with a group of friends, and we were frustrated that we couldn't go out and there was nothing to do, and we were all forced to wear these masks. And one of my guys said, I wish I had a place to vent our frustrations. So I went to the computer and created a couple email accounts and a website, and I said, here, right away. And so Texas really lacked a place for independent right-wing thought, right? And I love seeing podcasts like this one that are coming out that are not connected to big corporations or mega donors or billionaires, right? And we function like that currently. We're not funded by billionaires. We're not funded by big organizations. We're truly independent, and I think that's the future of journalism.
You know, it's very interesting that here we are in Texas, and you're saying that current revolt was birthed out of the COVID issue. We had a Republican governor here, and he's, exposed us to all of these lockdowns, shutdowns, and all these mandates, all of these unconstitutional things, to include going past his executive authority of 30 days. And if I'm correct, we are still under a COVID emergency order here in the state of Texas, when now the World Health Organization has just come out last week and said that the COVID pandemic is over. Why is that?
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit, I was one of those people that for 30 days, I thought the world was ending. I was thought, COVID was going to destroy us. We were all screwed. I had bought masks. I bought a bunch of guns, more guns I already had, a bunch of ammo, stockpiled like crazy, totally convinced that this thing was going to happen, right?
You bought up a lot of toilet paper?
We did buy toilet paper.
I still don't understand why people buy
I don't know. The wife somehow convinced me that toilet paper was a good idea. You don't question your wife. So, no. As time went on, and it only took 30, 60, 90 days to go by, and you realize the death count doesn't add up, the numbers don't add up. This is all fake. This is all blown up. This is all astroturfed. And I quickly retracted and said, this is something's going on. This is not real. And so I wouldn't hold it against those people that originally had fear of this thing and that were willing to admit, look, we screwed up, right? And I haven't seen that from the governor. I haven't seen him come back and say, look, has he apologized for locking us down? No. As far as I know, he hasn't, right? And so there was a lot of mistakes made by a lot of really great people in power that we trusted to take care of us, and they caused a lot of financial distress and a lot of probably mental health distress on our people.
You had I think in Montgomery County, you had more suicides because of people losing businesses, things of this nature, than you had deaths from COVID. And so we did sacrifice people in their lives and their livelihoods. And you look at the teenage suicides because of the things that we took away from them. So, no, there has not been any type of apology. And that leads to another thing. We're about to see an incredible crisis here in Texas. We're already experiencing it, but with Title 42 being lifted, 1,250 miles of border that we share with an unstable state. The Mexican government is not control of the border, and we're not even control. Operation control of the border. What are your major concerns about now? I mean, we've already had 5 to 6 to 7 million in the past 2 years, but now we're not even going to try to stop people from coming here illegally with the lifting of Title 42.
No, and the government knows this. I have a connection over in one of the big government agencies related to immigration, and he's told me that they are actually training IT reps, IT people that work in tech, to do interviews for illegals. Because they're just so short-handed. They're desperate now. They can't hire enough people, so they're bringing people from other departments that are completely unrelated to interviewing illegal aliens to bring them in to now do these interviews because they just can't handle it. So the government knows. The government absolutely knows. And instead of saying, look, we need to either extend Title 42 or we need to do more to lock down our border, they're just saying, well, let's just give people more responsibility to bring these illegals in. And it's absurd. And the leftists that are constantly screaming about we need to raise the minimum wage, they have no idea that when you bring these illegals in to work for cheap labor, they're depressing the value of work. Instead, if we lock down our state, lock down our country, it would naturally raise the wage. You would get people paid at a higher rate. We have plenty of homeless people, plenty of veterans that could benefit from having better jobs. We need to take care of our family and our people before we start taking care of the rest of the world.
No, you're absolutely right. And the fact that here in Texas, we're tops for human and sex trafficking. I mean, something has to be done. You live here in the same as I do in the DFW area. I mean, Dallas is one of the top cities for sex trafficking. We cannot continue to turn a blind eye to this.
No, and but we are. It's very clear that we are going to. At least it's trending that way, right? There's a lot of this stuff leads to just degeneracy throughout the state, and violence and crime, smuggling, fentanyl, right? And it's hurting our people. The only people benefiting from this behavior are the companies that fund it, the cartel, the gangs, and all the bad actors that play a part in it.
I would have never thought that I would be in my country after serving 22 years in the Army when I was deployed to help other countries secure their border. We can't even secure our own. and I'm in the state that is not doing anything to secure.
We're not allowed to. I mean, I was watching your report from the border, and you had provided a picture where it showed a man who lived on his farm, and his gate or his property lined up right up against the border.
Yeah.
And he was so tired of illegals cutting down his fence that he
Yeah.
just put up a ladder. And it's like you kind of can't blame the guy. I mean, you're not allowed to defend your property. I imagine if somebody hopped into his lawn, he wouldn't be able to defend his property by any means or defend his country in a way. So it's like, okay, well, rather than have to shell the money, here, just throw up a ladder. My country's not going to protect me, so why should I have to pay for a new fence?
It's amazing that people down there, these ranchers, have completely lost hope. They've been abandoned from the federal government, from the state government, and it's going to just continue to exacerbate itself and get worse. Let's talk about some current things that are happening since this current revolt. Yeah. We just had an incredible resignation of a state representative here in Texas. Tell us about that.
Yeah, incredibly unfortunate. Brian Slayton, former maybe at this point, Brian Slayton has resigned, coming off of allegations in a report from the General Investigations Committee that he engaged in sexual behavior with a staffer, and there was a substantial amount of alcohol involved in those decisions. In this case, she was under the age of 21. I believe she was 19. So you hate to see it. Representative Slayton was supposed to be the farthest right, most conservative rep in office, and now doing one of the worst things that one could do, especially as a married person, a married individual. Really, really hard to see.
You know, when people talk about the swamp, when people, being in Austin and Washington, D.C., that's real. And it is so important that people go down there and they're guarded. And, I remember the guys when I was up in Washington, D.C., they would say, hey, Al, come on, go out with us, and we're going to go downtown, or we're going to go to this taco place or whatever. And I say, hey, look, man, I'm going to go buy Popeye's chicken or Subway on my way back to my little basement apartment, so y'all go have fun. And the next thing you know, Duncan Hunter, exact same thing, out there, cavorting and whatever. People have to be so much more guarded and understand that they're always under the watchful eye.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mike Pence, but he had a great rule where he doesn't do meetings with women unless there's another person or his wife is in the room with him, And that's probably a great rule to follow. I mean, people were pretty upset about the Slayton issue, and they're pointing fingers at other reps that have been involved in alleged affairs. And, they've got a point. But the thing that a lot of people aren't mentioning is if you've got a gentleman here who's a state rep, and he even said in the report, he told the young woman, the 19-year-old woman, he said, "You control me now." He's very aware of the situation he has put himself in voluntarily, right? And if he's a person who is easily compromised in such a situation, it doesn't. I mean, what's to say a foreign agent can't do something even worse to somebody like that? Yeah, we saw it with Eric Swalwell. Exactly. I mean, we got to understand that he still engaged in a voluntary behavior. I mean, it wasn't like he was, forced to do what he did. Yeah. It was voluntary. And so you really hate to see it.
Well, do you get that sensing? I mean, because let's look at that. I mean, we had the Brooks Landgraf issue out in West Texas. I think that's Midland, Odessa. We had Lacey Hull and also Cole Hefner. Lacey Hull was down in the Houston area, Cole Hefner, East Texas. Is there's a little bit of, if you're in our little cabal, if you're in our little club, I mean, we'll protect you from this stuff. But if you're not, if you're a little bit of an agitator, you're on your own.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's very clear. And the thing that really seemed to give that side of the table their fuel to chase after this and really nail down Slayton was the fact that alcohol was involved. I think that if there hadn't been alcohol involved and there hadn't been, and people that were under the age of 21, it would have been a lot harder to really pressure him, right? And it probably wouldn't be news. People would be like, oh, he had an affair, he made a mistake, whatever, move on with our day, But the fact that there was alleged illegal activity involved really gives them the fuel to kind of, get him removed. And, anybody could admit those allegations of affairs with those other individuals you named, they were never really talked about on the floor. They were never really talked about the Capitol. They went on to hold pretty high positions and they won their re-elections overwhelmingly, right? So now the question I think is what happens to Slayton here? Does he continue to work in politics? Does he get hired in as a consultant for Pale Horse or other organizations? I mean, what happens?
He may be going to jail because this is a criminal offense. Providing, alcohol to someone that's below the age of 21. I mean, the young female and several others have 19 years of age. And so he's probably looking at some criminal charges coming, I would think.
Yeah, it's possible. And God, I just feel horrible for his
Yeah.
wife and the children
Yeah.
involved and for his constituents of all things. Now you've got I don't know if it's a special election or if there's just wait for the next election and who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, that's true. You can't have a special election because the session is going to be over here in by the end of this month.
Yeah.
So you can't hold it. It takes longer than that to do the primary and everything for a special election. So, but you brought up a great point, the political consultancy class, because I think that we need to be fed up with them because they make jack, they get paid, win, lose, or draw, whatever. I think that if you lose, you don't get paid. I mean, there has to be some incentive for these people because I think they're the ones with their horrible messaging. They're causing the demise here in the state of Texas.
You're 100% right. And very few have realized that. There is a group of consultants, PACs, organizations that just churn out either bad candidates or do bad jobs on elections. And they get paid, they win, and then the grassroots and the constituents and the citizens of Texas lose, right? And then they get hired again. People keep hiring them. People keep consulting with them. People keep trusting them to provide good strategy on campaigns. And we keep going back to these bad actors and these bad consultants and hoping for different results. And it's insanity, right?
Yep.
And you had an election over in McKinney ISD where they decided to split the vote. They had two conservative candidates running against one liberal candidate in an ISD race, and of course they split the vote. They lose, right? And but the consultants walk away with $15,000 or more. And you know what? They're going to get hired again. I guarantee you. They're going to work on another campaign. People are going to forget about it, and they're just churning out. It's just a total business for them. And I get it. You got to make a living. I get it. I get
but
it.
you need to win.
But you need to win. As you know, at the end of the day, all that matters is that you win.
Yeah.
Really. And right. And you pray to God that you do a good path. You follow a good path on the way
Yeah.
there. But you've got to win. What good is having good messaging, good power, good stances if you don't have the ability to wield that power and wield those and actually effectively cause change? And we don't. We're losing.
It's sad. Let's talk about a couple other things that happened over this weekend. I mean, you and I live over in an area not too far away from Allen, Texas, and we had the shooting there. Just another sad event. Praying for the victims and the families, but the narrative out there that the left is trying to push all of a sudden because they got to have that white supremacist, thing out there because they haven't had in the last few. How is it that all of a sudden they're trying to say this gentleman, Mauricio Garcia, I think that's his name, 33 years of age, living with mommy and daddy who don't speak English, is now all of a sudden a white supremacist neo-Nazi?
Yeah, well, that was our messaging, right? It didn't make sense. We even put out an article this morning about that. And literally in the last 5 minutes while I was sitting there, they uncovered his social media and they finally released all the evidence they had. And it seems to be the case that he was a big Nazi supporter. He had an insane amount of propaganda. He was posting photos of left Nazi propaganda. He was a big consumer of Nazi propagandists, and it looks like he even had a swastika tattooed on his chest. He was wearing a patch that said Right Wing Death Squad. Here's the thing, and this goes to my talk about gun control. We've got a lot of mentally ill people in this country.
And this guy had been released from the military because of a mental illness. And that's the same as Jared Loeffner was, booted out of the military, didn't fail his initial screening. He goes on to shoot Gabby Giffords. Why aren't we dealing with the mental health issue instead of trying to push everything into this, white supremacy and whatever?
You're 100% right. Nobody is addressing the key foundational issue, which is mental health. You've got people that think that you've got men running around chopping off private parts, thinking that they're women. Yeah. You've got women running around taking off skin from their thigh or their forearms to create phallic objects on themselves, and we're supposed to live and pretend that this is normal. I mean, I went to a business the other day and I see a man with much more facial hair than me, completely bald, but he's wearing a pink dress and pink nails, and I'm supposed to pretend that this isn't laughable, that this is I'm supposed to have a real serious conversation with this person. And so we've got plenty of insane people on the left, overwhelmingly. But we also have to admit that we've got some crazy people on the right.
Oh, yeah.
And this is absolutely one of those cases. And instead of our government, instead of our politicians addressing that, hey, we've got mental issues, maybe we should do something about the consumption of social media. Maybe we should do something about the overwhelming prescription drugs that are being given to these young people. Instead of doing that, we're just saying, oh, let's take away their rights. Yeah. Let's take away their rights. because it's affecting people like you and I who are normal, healthy individuals.
Absolutely.
Now we can't buy rights because of a lot of these bad actors. And instead of saying, hey, let's go after the pharmaceutical companies that are overwhelmingly over-prescribing SSRIs and things like that, they're giving them more, and then they're just taking the rights away from everybody else. It's completely unfair. It's unconstitutional, and it's insane.
Well, the amazing thing is that I have to sit here, when I have this podcast program, or anytime I'm posting something out there on social media, I'm thinking, okay, what do I not want to say? I don't want to get flagged. I don't want to get booted off. So why aren't we booting off these neo-Nazis and white supremacists and all these other knuckleheads? Why are we giving them a platform out there? Why is the Ayatollah Khomeini and the supreme ruler of Iran, they got Twitter accounts. Why aren't they booted off?
I mean, the conspiracy theory will tell you that they want them on, right? Because they want to start up trouble. They're using these people. I mean, look at the stuff that happened with the Proud Boys. You had FBI agents in this Proud Boys group, it's a right-wing militia group, actively stirring up problems to cause mayhem. And it's almost like they're using these crazy people as tools. They're a means to affect change nationally. You take this group of crazy, it's not unheard of. You take this group of crazy people, you inject propaganda to them, and you feed them, and all you do is direct them. They're a wild dog, and you're just directing them to go attack a certain thing.
It's like throwing blood in the ocean.
Yeah,
for
they're like,
sharks.
okay, now we have to pass these gun bills, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not the government, or maybe somebody is wanting these people on to have a platform because they want to use them.
It's amazing because my oldest daughter, who's a very astute young lady, she's a physician's assistant. She said, "Dad, do you ever get the feeling that with these mass shootings that someone's manipulating these things and make them happen?" I said, it's not just a conspiracy theory. I mean, there are many people that believe that someone's back there like the Joker or whoever, just creating chaos and confusion out there because that's what they want. Because when you have the chaos and confusion, we the government needs to come in. We need to usurp more of your rights so that we can reduce the chaos and confusion. Don't worry that we were the ones that caused it.
Yeah, you see so many of these shootings, and the FBI will always release a statement saying, "Oh, he was on our radar. He was on our watch list for us." Always. They always knew, but they were watching him, but they weren't watching him enough that they didn't see that this guy went out and bought a gun and rolled up and started shooting people. They weren't watching enough, right? So it's very odd. I'm not. Conspiracy theories nowadays feel like just things that are eventually going to be proven is true, right? But it is interesting that the government seems to always have these people on radars.
What do you think about what happened down in Brownsville, Texas? I mean, the guy drives up and runs over several of these illegal immigrants that are outside of some NGO facility.
Yeah, a lot of conflicting reports and rumors out there, right? So you look at the guy that did this. He flipped his car over while running over all these innocent people. And he crawled out of his car. They arrested him. They released a photo of him, and he's covered in tattoos. Okay, and the tattoos are similar in the style as the guy from Allen. He's got the guy that ran over the people in Brownsville. He's got tattoos on his stomach, chest that say RGV Rio Grande Valley 956, which is the area code out there. Okay. The guy from the Allen shooting had a tattoo of the city of Dallas, the Dallas logo on his palm. There is a gang that uses city affiliation or location affiliation to mark their members, and that's Tango Blast, right? So it does seem interesting that you have two people that are both Hispanic, both very overwhelmingly Hispanic. They're not white passing Hispanic, that commit crimes on minorities, both of them in two different areas the same weekend, that both have tattoos that are related to this Tango Blast guy. And they're also stating that this and this is unconfirmed, they're stating that this guy that ran over these illegal immigrants out of this NGO was screaming anti-illegal sentiments towards them while he was getting out of his car after crashing. And so it's all very odd. And it could be the case this is completely random and these are just bad people that are drugged up or crazy, but something's not adding
Lightning
up.
doesn't strike twice.
Yeah, it's odd.
And so, and so on this one weekend, this is what we get. But as you and I were talking off camera before, how many shootings were there in Chicago this past weekend?
Yeah, I was in Chicago this past weekend for a wedding. I was there for 4 or 5 days, and I listen to talk radio. I love it. Grew up on it, so I listen to it while I'm out there just to see what the lay of the land is in the place I grew up. Not a single mention of the shootings there, but plenty of talk about what's going on here in Texas.
Amazing.
Right? And we know why. We all know why. Yeah. It's a right-wing state. Right, and they have the narrative that they can push more gun control. Right, if a minority commits crime in the city of Chicago, that's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
It can be 50 shootings in 3 days. That's just another weekend in Chicago. It's no big deal. But a shooting that happens that kills a substantially smaller amount of people in the state of Texas, that's a big deal.
Amazing. So what's next for Current Revolt? I mean, how have things been going in 3 years, 3.5 years?
Yeah, about 3 years. Things have been great. We started off. A big month for us was 250 views on our website. Now, an average day for us is around 10,000 views on our website. So we've grown pretty substantially, and I'm proud to say that we've grown without a substantial injection from a billionaire or a millionaire or anything like that. We've really been able to effectively operate on just readers, giving us these $5 subscription fees, and it's gone really well. As far as next steps, really don't know. We're just right now we're focused on reporting news and giving our opinion on things. I welcome, if you're listening, if you're watching this, I welcome more people getting in and doing investigative journalism. I don't see other news outlets coming in as competitors. We need more right-wing journalists. We need more podcasts like this, people talking that aren't influenced or controlled by big business or big billionaires, right? And so I welcome more people to do what we do. It's not hard. We're not doing anything special. I just think that we've got great opinions on things that are relevant to Texans.
Well, from 250 to 10,000 a day, that shows an incredible growth, and who knows what's going to happen in the next 3 years. How can people follow Current Revolt? How can people stay in touch with what y'all doing?
Very easy. On our website, currentrevolt.com, you can subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. Doesn't cost anything. If you want to give us $5 a month, you can. It helps pay the bills. And with that, they get a newsletter, special news email on Fridays that has some insider news. We're also on Twitter. We're very active on Twitter. So if you want really quick news and very quick takes, follow us on Twitter. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. It's all Current Revolt.
Will we be able to turn the corner here and get Texas back to being the Texas that people think it is?
The nice part of me and wants to say yes. I don't think so. I think we're on a bad path. I think unless something very extreme happens, and I don't mean in a bad way, but I think unless there's a big wake-up call to the citizens, and unless we start really filtering out the bad actors, the bad consultants, the bad groups that are bringing us down consistently, unless we do all of that, I don't see us turning it around. We need a big change.
Well, Tony Ortiz, you're part of that change.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us for this episode of the Steadfast Law Podcast. Special thanks to Tony Ortiz for being with us and sharing his thoughts, perspectives, and insights as the founder of the Current Revolt. And as always, if you like this podcast, please click the like button and share it with others. And until next time, steadfast.